Now, parts of the HIV/AIDS quilt are now on display on a Northeast Nebraska college campus, raising awareness of those diseases ahead of World AIDS Day next month. 5 panels of the quilt are now on display at Lay Theater on the campus of Wayne State College. The entire quilt is more than 50,000 panels, and it's been an ongoing project since the 1980s. It's a project of the National AIDS Memorial to tell the stories of the more than 700,000 people who've died from HIV and AIDS in the United States. The panels on display in Wayne are open to the public from 5 to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, now through December 1st.